So, welcome back to the next instance of our Minecraft in Unity series. About a week ago, we were creating our hotbar, and today I've prepared something special for you, and that is how to create enemies like in Minecraft. Maybe one more thing. This will be the final episode for now, at least. I do have two awesome things in the pipeline for you still regarding this series, but unless there's demand for some other features, I think we've got all important stuff covered now. And you can find the finished version of this project on my Patreon now. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on what we got in the pipeline. So, last time I was using a separate video in order to explain how we created all the assets, but this time I want to show you how you can create a 3D model of your preferred enemy right away. That's why I will show you how to do that in Blender in the first section of this video, and obviously you can also find a lot of stuff regarding Minecraft's 3D models online. So in my empty Blender project, the first thing I did in order to create the zombie was to remove everything but the default cube. Pressing tab to enter edit mode. If you want to make the actual modeling a bit easier for you, you can use the mirror modifier, but then UV editing will be a bit more difficult later on. And you can select through the faces tool the top and bottom face and increase their scale on the Z-axis like that to create the legs. Maybe duplicate it. And I would encourage you to create a new cube while in edit mode, which will make the weighting of the rigging a bit easier later on, since our zombies' movements will then look a bit more authentic. And by the way, these movements I do through the G key on my keyboard. If I want to select the whole arm, I can also enter wireframe mode and select all of these faces at once. To do the UV editing, I prefer to enter shading mode. Then I got my workspace like that, where I can just drag my texture in here like that, and connect color and base color. And as soon as I now select a face of my zombie model and select the corresponding texture right here, and make this the UV editor, I will see it like that. I can drag it right here, change the edges a bit, and let's better rotate this guy like negative 90 degrees. And as you can see, I only did the front part now. It really isn't the prettiest zombie of them all, but maybe he'll take it as a compliment. So next I'd like to return to modeling, hit tab again to enter object mode, and add a new armature. Maybe switch to wireframe shading, enter edit mode again, and then let's drag this bone all the way up to the top using G, and then with the E key we're able to add new bones to it that can form our skeleton as a whole. Like that. And we got our good old head bone right here. To connect these two though, we'd have to first select our model, then shift select our armature, and then click right, parent with automatic weights. However, if I now choose to enter pose mode, need to move one of our bones, I can see that the according shoulder is getting deformed strangely, and by moving the legs, one part of his stomach does move with it in an unhealthy way, and that, as you could have guessed, is because of our zombies' weights right here, where we can decide which parts of our model are getting affected how much by each bone. So in this case, I'd like to click right, drag this one right to 0, and then paint all the way over those vertices, and for the shoulder make it entirely blue. So let me return to post mode real quick, and now if I move this one and this arm as well, that does look way better. And now we got everything we need in order to go to File, Export, and I personally use FBX. Make sure to have your zombie texture in your Unity project as well. And personally, the settings that I always use is setting path mode to copy, and selecting this one, and reducing the scale. Well, doesn't really matter, but I usually use 0.5 here. And if we now take a look into our Unity project, our zombie is waiting for us right here. And with that, that's already it for the first part of the video. Now in the second part of this episode, gentlemen, we need to convert our zombie model to a prefab in Unity to either be able to instantiate it at runtime, for example for your day-night cycle, or to instantiate it manually and like having centralized control over it. So in order to do that, let's create a new empty game object, drag it into your Explorer and open it in prefab mode, and then drag your model right here, and let's decrease its size a bit. And I think 0.2 is what I had when testing. Then you can add your corresponding script. I'll use the one you can find in the description. I originally planned to make the enemy script inherit from, or to make a separate zombie script and inherit it from the enemy script, which I, on the other hand, inherit from our entity script. But instead of doing that, I've just tried to make the enemy script as general as possible, so you can use it for almost any kind of enemy. So I will now enter a few values right here. By the way, target range means the distance to the player that our enemy is trying to achieve. Like this guy, for example, if you ask him, he'd probably want to make the distance between your brain and his teeth to 0. But when it comes to skeletons, for example, since they're ranged enemies, they'd probably want to keep some distance to you. And then, but I won't be showing these in this video, but you got also some options to consider right here for ranged enemies. Here you got your animations. Speaking of animations, let's add the first one. Enable automatic keyframes. And one thing I even wanted to do before is to make sure that this guy has its hands up, even if in its default state. So finally, for the walking animation, let's say I want to start like that. 1 second later, switch the rotations, and at the end I want to have the same state like in the beginning. And since I don't want this to be the default state, I'm gonna create an empty state, idle. Make sure yours is called idle as well. Make this one the default state, and that's it. Next we'll need a rigid body component and a capsule collider that you can simply change manually through this button. Yeah, like that. And this is pretty handy for me now. This ray you can see right here, the zombie or whatever enemy you got will automatically jump onto every object that is located like within this ray that does have a block tag to it. So if you're having a similar setup like we do, make sure to add a block tag to all of your blocks and to regenerate the world. Now let's drag this guy into the thing like that. And now let's take a look at how our undead friend is doing. And before we do it, we need to insert our animation right here. There he is, working. And also we need to make sure to freeze his X and Z rotation, like that. So there he is again. I'm gonna go a bit towards him so that you can see me. And he is jumping lovely onto the blocks. and will indeed try to touch me, which works as you can see in the console. If I get too far away again, then we'll start to wander around again aimlessly. Again, if you're planning to make a ranged enemy, you can make this the range from which your enemy is going to start shooting. This will be the seconds that pass between each and every shot, and your actual bullet that will on instantiation automatically be rotated towards the player, but only once. So next, let's bite the bullet and take a look into the world of code, shall we? So today we only really got one script, yay, which is our universal enemy script, deriving from the entity script that you should already know by now. Provides us with some basic attributes and the jump functionality. The enemy script, however, has its attributes you already know right here, and then some floats to calculate the time that's passed between the last of these actions, and this one for its idle state in which the enemy is just going to wander around. Our start method is just a simple slave of ours in order to assign our components, but in our update method this will be quite important. We locate our player through its tag. As soon as we found him, we check if we're able to see him. If so, we want to move towards him, but only as long as we didn't reach our target range yet. Then we rotate our enemy towards him, except the y-axis, so that the zombie doesn't clip into the ground or whatever, and then move towards him, play the walking animation, and in case we're facing a block, jump on top. And if we did already reach our target range, we play our idle animation. This will be for your skeleton. If we're in shooting range, we take a look if enough time has passed since our last shot. If so, we register this one as our latest shot and instantiate an error and rotate it towards the player. If our player isn't in our view, on the other hand, then we calculate a new random direction every 10 seconds, and for the first 6 seconds in this time frame we're moving along our random direction and do the usual stuff. In the last 4 seconds we do nothing, and yeah, as you see I was using some magic numbers here. I just thought you can change those at any time anyway. If you watched the video you know, and yeah, I just don't want to get the Unity inspector all messed up, unlike what other developers might be doing. Yeah, check jump, again that is what we do if we're moving. We don't want to boost ourselves in the air, so we perform this only once each second, and if our ray that we shoot in front of us does hit something, if not we cancel, and it's a block, then we register our jump and jump, which is provided through the entity script that you can find in the description as well. And this one is for deeper purposes, which is an actual visual ray of what happens under the hood. And finally, on a collision, we just want to know if it's the player, and if so, yeah, you can do any stuff you want, but I'd encourage you to decrease a health variable that you add to the entity script, which does then automatically call a die function that you'd probably want to override for the player, since you just don't want him to just disappear. Instead you probably want to display your death screen and whatnot. And with that, I think you got all you need. Again, feel free to check out our Patreon if you want to get access to this whole scene, or simply subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll see you in the next series.